I would love to have a thorough discussion on the proper method to tax loss harvest without getting into trouble. Something that goes beyond general terms of don't replace one fund tracking an index with another fund tracking the same index. I would like a discussion on how much overlap is enough and how much is too much. For example, if I want to replace a Russell 2000 ETF with an S&P 600 ETF, is that enough difference? What if they're managed by different managers, Vanguard versus State Street? The overlap between the funds on a stock basis is low, less than 80%, but the tracking error is very low. What matters? The conversation would be deep enough to provide in-depth guidance on how much relevance there is to tracking error, underlying overlap, and same management. The IRS wants to see large tracking error, but as an investor, I want to minimize the deviation in tracking error between funds. How do I safely thread this needle? In my opinion, this is highly relevant right now for anyone with a long-term outlook to shave some taxes in the future. However, getting audited is also a real pain. All right. Here's the deal with this. Lots of people worry about this when they learn about tax loss harvesting, but I don't know of anyone who knows of anyone who has ever been audited for a tax loss harvest. Basically, if the brokerage doesn't care, the IRS doesn't care. And the brokerage only cares if the QSIP number is the same. So you can't swap from the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF to the Vanguard Total Stock Market fund. That's the same investment. They're just two share classes of the same fund. You can't do that. But you can certainly go from the Vanguard Total Stock Market fund to the S&P 500 fund to the Large Cap Index fund to the Schwab Total Stock Market ETF to the iShares Total Stock Market ETF to the Fidelity Total Stock Market fund to the Fidelity Zero Total Stock Market fund. All these are options that have different QSIP numbers that are different investments, and that is as far as the IRS cares. They are not looking at the correlation between the funds. They are not looking at the stocks in the various funds and what the percentages are in each stock or how many stocks one holds and how many stocks the other holds. They just don't care. They got much, much bigger fish to fry. And so they have given guidance. And in the end, how it really works is if the QSIP number is different, nobody cares. And so when you're doing tax loss harvesting, the idea, of course, is to sell something with a loss and buy something that's similar to it, but not, in the words of the IRS, substantially identical. And then you get to claim that loss. You haven't dramatically changed the portfolio in any way, but you get to use these losses against all of your long-term capital gains. And against, if they're short-term losses, against short-term capital gains. And then, of course, up to $3,000 of those losses a year against your ordinary income. But here's the deal, right? I can't have the discussion you're looking to have because the IRS has not provided this in-depth guidance. For example, you say the IRS wants to see large tracking error. They've never said that. There is no guidance out there where the IRS says we want large tracking error between the two investments. They simply don't say that. They say not substantially identical. And that's it. That's where they leave it. And the reason why they haven't provided more guidance is because, number one, there's not that many people doing this. And number two, they just don't care. There's much bigger fish to fry. And I think the way they look at it is they're like, we're going to get most of this money back anyway when they sell these investments down the road because they've lowered their basis by tax loss harvesting. They don't stop and think that there's a lot of people like me that then donated those appreciated shares to charity or leave them to heirs and get the step up in basis at death. And so, in reality, if you're really smart about this, you can save a lot of taxes. But I think the way a lot of people use them is they end up later selling those shares anyway, and it really doesn't change that much. They just get that tax deferral benefit. So I hope that's helpful. But certainly going from a Russell 2000 ETF to an S&P 600 ETF is not substantially identical. I mean, these two different indexes are totally different, have dramatically different stocks in them. And I would not lay awake at night worried that the IRS is going to audit that sort of a swap. I wouldn't even be worried about going from a Vanguard Total Stock Market Fund to a Fidelity Total Stock Market Fund. They're different enough that you can make a very good argument to an auditor if you ever, heaven forbid, got audited on this. But I seriously don't know anybody that's ever been audited about their tax loss harvesting. If you have, shoot me an email and I'll read your email on the podcast. But I have yet to find someone who knows someone who got audited on tax loss harvesting done properly. If you want your questions answered by the White Coat Investor, record your question at whitecoatinvestor.com/YQA or click the link in the description.